The day I found out I wasn't allowed to stand with my own son at his altar, I was holding the wire transfer confirmation for $58,000 I had just sent to pay for the whole wedding. I set it down on the kitchen counter and stood there for a long moment, not quite sure what to do with my hands. My name is Leonard Whitfield. I'm 64 years old, retired mechanical engineer, widower. My wife Sylvia passed away 3 years ago after a long illness. Gareth is our only son. This wedding was supposed to be the first big family celebration since we lost her, and I had wanted to do it right, for both of us. I called Gareth to confirm the transfer had gone through. Hey, just letting you know the Riverside Gardens payment cleared. You're all set for Saturday. Oh, yeah, thanks, Dad. His voice was flat, distracted, music in the background, the sound of glasses, laughter. So what time Friday for the rehearsal dinner? I figured I'd come early, maybe help set up if you need anything. A pause then, a different voice came on. Smooth, practiced. Leonard, it was Nadine, my daughter-in-law. The rehearsal dinner is really just for the wedding party. Close family on our side. We're keeping it intimate. I switched the phone to my other ear. Gareth is my son. I'm his father. Right? Of course. But it's really structured around the ceremony participants, the people walking in the procession, standing at the altar. You understand how it is. I did not understand. I'm walking Gareth down the aisle, I said slowly. Another pause. I could hear Gareth saying something quietly in the background, his voice low and careful. Actually, Nadine said, we decided Gareth's uncle, my father-in-law's brother, will stand with him. It just feels more balanced for the photos. More symmetrical. The kitchen felt very quiet. Sylvia and I had remodeled it together 22 years ago. New counters, new tile, a window above the sink she had insisted on so she could watch the backyard while she cooked. I stared at that window. Gareth, I said, is that true? He came back on. Dad, it's just, Nadine's family has traditions. It's not personal. I told him I understood. I told him I would see them Saturday at 2. The line went dead. I set the phone down next to my checkbook. The transfer confirmation sat there beside it. $58,000. I had covered the venue, catering, photographer, flowers, and band. Everything they had circled and requested and revised over 14 months of planning. And I had done it without complaint, without conditions, because that is what I believed fathers do. I did not sleep that night. I sat in Sylvia's reading chair, the one with the blue cushion. She had reupholstered herself twice because she liked the shape of it. I looked at our wedding photo on the mantle. City Hall, 1986. 2 witnesses, $40 between us. No band, no flowers, no venue, just a promise. We kept that promise through my engineering salary and her nursing shifts. Through a miscarriage, through my mother's illness, through Gareth's childhood, through everything. Right up until the last year, when we kept it harder than ever before. Somewhere along the way, I had made a different kind of promise to Gareth, an unspoken one that I would always say yes, that I would always be the safety net. He had learned to count on it the way you count on a wall being there when you lean against it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my bank statements laid out in front of me. I had been tracking my finances carefully since Sylvia passed. A retired engineer on a pension does not have the luxury of being careless with numbers. What I saw when I actually looked stopped me cold. In the 3 years since Gareth met Nadine, I had given them $97,000. I had written the number down once before in a notebook I kept in my desk drawer, but seeing it spread across the table in actual statements, actual dates, actual account numbers, felt completely different. The number had weight now. $15,000 for the down payment on their condo when they moved in together. $8,000 when their credit cards maxed out the following holiday season. $12,000 for a business venture of Nadine's involving an online retail idea that she abandoned after 8 months, $58,000 for the wedding. Smaller transfers scattered in between, $400 here, $600 there, $1,100 for what Nadine called a plumbing emergency, $800 for a car registration she said had caught her off guard. All of it adding up quietly while I told myself it was what fathers do. I opened my laptop and checked the joint account I had set up years earlier for genuine emergencies. The one I had added Gareth to when Sylvia first got sick, so he could help manage things if I needed him to. The balance was $3,247. It should have been around $7,000. I clicked into the transaction history. 6 withdrawals over the past 5 months. $500, $300, $1,200, and $400, $200. No explanations, no text messages asking, just gone. I sat there for a while looking at the screen. Then I picked up the phone and called First National. This is Leonard Whitfield. I need to remove 2 people from my joint checking account. A pause on the line. All right, Mr. Whitfield, who are you removing? My son and his wife. I spent the rest of that morning on the phone. Every account where they had access. Every automatic transfer I had set up over the years to make things easier for them. I closed all of it. When I was done, my hands were steady in a way they had not been in months. That afternoon, I drove across town to a coffee shop I had never been to before, somewhere I would not run into anyone I knew, and ordered a black coffee I did not really want. I just needed somewhere to sit that was not my house. I was halfway through the cup when my phone rang, Gareth. Dad, what did you do? The bank called Nadine. I removed you both from my accounts. Why would you do that without even talking to us first? Because I'm not a bank, Gareth. I'm your father. That's not fair. We have expenses. Nadine's business is still getting started, and we're stretched thin right now. So am I? I have a mortgage, utilities, car insurance, medical bills. I have a life to maintain. His voice shifted, harder. I recognized the tone. It was not entirely his own. You're being petty because of the rehearsal dinner thing. Petty, I said. The word sat in my mouth like something I wanted to spit out. I paid $58,000 for your wedding. I'm not allowed to stand at the altar with my own son, and I am being petty. Silence on the line. I've given you $97,000 in 3 years, Gareth. $97,000. That is more than I earned in 2 years of working. And the moment I stopped, you're calling me petty. He didn't answer that directly. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. Flatter, you're gonna regret this. We'll handle it our way. The line went dead. I sat there with the phone face down on the table and waited for the fear to arrive. It did not come. What came instead was something I had not felt in longer than I could remember. Relief. Plain and simple relief. Like finally setting down something heavy you had been carrying so long you forgot it was not supposed to be yours to carry. 3 days passed. Quiet days. I worked in the garden, fixed a loose board on the back deck that had been bothering me for 2 summers, reorganized the garage the way I had been meaning to do since Sylvia passed. That last day in the garage, I found a box of her things I had set aside meaning to go through when I was ready. I was not sure I was ready, but I opened it anyway. Old nursing textbooks, a coffee mug from the hospital she had worked at for 19 years, and underneath everything, a journal with a dark green cover. I had not seen it since before she got sick. I stood there in the garage holding it for a minute before I brought it inside. Most of it was the kind of thing you would expect. Notes about her days, small observations, things she was grateful for, the occasional frustration about work. I was not trying to find anything. I was just reading to feel close to her again. Then I found an entry from about 4 years back, roughly a year before she was diagnosed. Gareth had brought Nadine home for the first time that month. She asked Leonard about his retirement accounts at dinner tonight. First time meeting her, not in a curious way, in a calculating way. He didn't notice, I noticed. I don't know what to do with that. 2 pages later, another entry. Gareth looks happy. I'm not going to say anything. Maybe I'm wrong about her. I hope I am wrong about her. I sat at the kitchen table with the journal open in front of me for a long time. Sylvia had seen it from the very beginning. She had seen it and said nothing, because she did not want to be the thing that came between Gareth and someone he loved. That was her way. She trusted people to find their own way to the truth eventually. I had just taken longer than she probably expected. On Thursday morning, the doorbell rang. A man in an expensive suit was standing on my porch with a leather briefcase and a manila envelope. He said my name. I confirmed it. He handed me the envelope and walked back to his car without another word. I locked the front door, sat down at the kitchen table and opened it. Complaint for breach of contract. Plaintiffs, Gareth Whitfield and Nadine Holloway. Defendant, Leonard Whitfield. I read it 3 times before the words fully connected. They were suing me for $25,000, honeymoon expenses, emotional distress, breach of trust. The claim was that I had made repeated specific verbal promises to fund their honeymoon, that they had relied on those promises in good faith, and that I had willfully and maliciously withdrawn my support. My own son had served me with a lawsuit. I set the papers down and looked around the kitchen, the window above the sink, the counters Sylvia had picked out, the chair where she used to sit with her morning coffee before her shifts. I had spent 3 years keeping this house because leaving it felt like leaving her. Sitting there that morning with those papers on the table in front of me, I understood for the first time that she was not in the house. She was in the journal. She was in the decisions I made. She was not in the square footage. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it anyway. Mr. Whitfield, my name is Gloria Harmon. I'm an attorney. A colleague mentioned your situation. Have you been served yet? About 20 minutes ago. Are you alone right now? I looked around the empty kitchen. Yes. Would you be willing to meet with me this afternoon? No charge for the consultation. I said yes before she finished the sentence. Gloria Harmon's office was downtown, on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and coffee. She was around 50 frameless glasses, calm in the way that people who have seen genuinely bad situations tend to be calm, not detached, Just steady. She read through the complaint without saying anything, making small notes in the margins with a pen she kept clicking open and closed. When she finished, she set it down and looked at me directly. This is textbook financial elder abuse dressed up as a contract dispute. I'm 64, I said. You're over 60, you're a widower. Adult children are making financial demands under threat of legal action. That qualifies under Oregon statute. She leaned forward. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. So I did. The engagement announcement, the first requests for money, the condo down payment, the credit cards, Nadine's failed business, the wedding costs building up over 14 months, the joint account, the phone call about the rehearsal dinner being replaced at the altar, the threat Gareth had made before hanging up. All of it. She listened without interrupting once. When I finished, she asked one question. Do you have documentation? Bank statements going back 3 years. Canceled checks. Every text message where they asked for money. Every email where I confirmed a transfer. I keep detailed records. I was an engineer for 35 years. It's just how I'm built. She smiled for the first time. Good, because we are not just going to defend this lawsuit. We are going to make them wish they had never filed it. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Here's what you need to understand about their case. A verbal promise to give a gift is not a legally enforceable contract. It does not matter how many times you said you would help or that you wanted them to have a good start. Without a written agreement specifying an amount and a condition, there is no contract. Their attorney knows this. They are counting on you to settle because you love your son and do not want the embarrassment of a public dispute. I'm not settling. I can see that. She kept writing. We file a response denying all claims. Then we counter with a demand that any money given under an implied expectation of future repayment be classified as a loan, not a gift. Gareth told you they would take care of you when things improved. That is consideration. That potentially makes $97,000 recoverable. My head felt like it was running a calculation that kept coming back wrong. Is that actually possible? If we can demonstrate a pattern of promises made in exchange for financial support, yes, we will not necessarily recover it all. But the threat of having to repay 6 figures tends to change the math for people who filed a lawsuit expecting easy money. She looked up from her notepad. I want to be honest with you. This is going to get harder before it gets easier. Gareth may say things in legal filings that will hurt to read. Nadine's attorney will try to paint you as controlling, manipulative, bitter about the wedding. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Sylvia's journal sitting on my kitchen table. I thought about the entry she had written 4 years ago after meeting Nadine for the first time. He didn't notice. I noticed. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Over the following week, Gloria and I built the case file. Every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, every text thread, every email. She organized everything into a binder with color-coded tabs and a summary sheet at the front. She called it the foundation. The numbers laid out together were hard to look at. Not because they were complicated, because they were simple. $15,000 for the condo down payment in March of the first year. $8,000 credit card bailout the following January, $12,000 for Nadine's retail business in the spring, $5,000 $8,000 for the wedding across 14 months of payments, and then the scattered smaller amounts that filled in the gaps, $400, $600, $1,100, $800, all of it adding up to $97,000 over exactly 3 years. I also called my old friend Stuart Nolan. Stuart and I had known each other since our sons played Little League together in the early 2000s. He was a retired carpenter, straight-talking, the kind of man who remembered conversations exactly as they happened. He had been at my house the previous summer when I had told Gareth plainly that I would help him get started, but that I could not commit to specific amounts going forward. He had heard it. He was willing to testify to it. That single detail dismantled the core of their lawsuit. They were claiming I had made a specific verbal promise about the honeymoon. Stuart's account of that conversation put a direct contradiction in front of any judge who read it. 2 weeks before the court date, Gareth showed up at my front door. He looked thinner than the last time I had seen him, tired around the eyes. We need to talk, he said. Not about the lawsuit. I did not invite him in. I stood in the doorway. Nadine and I decided it would be better if you didn't come to the wedding. I looked at my son standing on the porch of the house he had grown up in and let that sentence settle. You're uninviting me from the wedding I paid for. It's going to be awkward, with everything that's happening. We don't want that tension on our day. Gareth, I kept my voice level. I have given you $97,000. I have never shown up uninvited. I have never made a scene. I have never asked for anything back. And you're standing here telling me I cannot come to your wedding. Something moved behind his eyes, a flicker of something that might have been recognition, but it disappeared as quickly as it came and he looked away. It's just how it has to be, he said. He turned and walked back to his car. I watched him drive away, then I went inside and called Gloria. They uninvited me from the wedding. A short pause. I'm sorry, Leonard. Don't be. Now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Fluorescent lights, worn blue carpeting, 2 counsel tables pushed close together. Gareth and Nadine sat on the left with their attorney, a young man in a sharp suit who carried himself like someone who charged by the word. Gloria and I sat on the right. Stuart Nolan was in the gallery behind us. Judge Beverly Crane walked in and the room stood. She was in her late 50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, the kind of measured presence that made you think she had heard every story ever invented and was no longer surprised by any of them. Their attorney went first. He laid out the promissory estoppel argument carefully and confidently. He said I had made repeated specific promises to fund the honeymoon. He said Gareth and Nadine had relied on those promises in good faith, booking travel and accommodations based on my word. He said I had then willfully and without warning withdrawn my support, leaving them in financial distress on the eve of their wedding. He presented his evidence. Text messages where I had written things like, "Don't worry, I've got you, and I want this to be everything you hoped for." Emails where I had said, "I'll take care of it." A voicemail where I had told Gareth, "You know I'm always here." Taken together and stripped of any context, they looked like a paper trail of broken promises. Then Nadine took the stand. She was composed. Pale blue dress, hair pulled back, neatly minimal makeup. She spoke in a careful, measured voice about how I had always been her father-in-law's way of showing love, how she and Gareth had planned their future based on my assurances, how my sudden reversal had blindsided them at the worst possible time. We had already put deposits on the flights and the hotel, she said. We couldn't get them back. We had no way to cover the difference because we had structured everything around what Leonard told us he would provide. She looked over at me then, steady and composed. I don't understand what changed. I don't understand why someone would promise something and then take it back. Judge Crane wrote something down. Then it was our turn. Gloria stood and let the room settle before she said anything. Your Honor, the plaintiffs would like this court to believe that Leonard Whitfield is a father who made promises he refused to keep. The documentation tells a very different story. She opened the binder and walked Judge Crane through every line: the $15,000 condo down payment, the $8,000 credit card bailout, the $12,000 for Nadine's failed business, the $58,000 wedding paid in full across 14 months, the scattered smaller transfers adding up to $97,000 over exactly 3 years. This is not a man who fails to support his family, Gloria said. This is a man who is systematically drawn on until he said enough. Then Stuart took the stand. He was straightforward and unhurried, the way men get when they have nothing to hide and nothing to prove. He described being present at my kitchen table the previous summer when I had told Gareth directly that I would help him get started but could not commit to specific dollar amounts going forward. He remembered the conversation clearly. He had thought nothing of it at the time. It had just been a father being honest with his son about where things stood. Their attorney cross-examined him hard. Stuart did not waver. Then I testified. I told Judge Crane about the phone call the night I confirmed the $58,000 transfer, about being told I would not be at the rehearsal dinner, about being replaced at the altar by someone Nadine had chosen, about discovering the joint account had been drawn down through 6 separate withdrawals over 5 months without a single conversation, about the call with Gareth where he said, "We'll handle it our way," and then hung up, about standing at my own front door 2 weeks before the wedding and being told not to come. Your Honor, I said, I would have given my son anything within my means. I did give him nearly everything I had available to give over 3 years. But the moment I stopped, he filed a lawsuit against me. I do not believe that is a son seeking his father's support. I believe that is something else entirely. The room was quiet when I finished. Judge Crane took off her glasses and set them on the bench. Let me make sure I have this correctly, she said, looking at their attorney. Your clients received $58,000 for a wedding, $15,000 for a condominium down payment, and a series of additional transfers totaling nearly $100,000 over a 3-year period. And they are now before this court seeking an additional $25,000 because Mr. Whitfield declined to fund their honeymoon. Your Honor, the verbal commitments that were made, alleged verbal commitments, Judge Crane said. Expressed intentions to support a family member are not enforceable contracts, particularly when, as Mr. Whitfield's counsel has demonstrated at length, he had already provided support far exceeding any reasonable expectation. She looked at Gareth and Nadine directly. This pattern comes before this court with some regularity. Adult children who have come to regard parental generosity as an entitlement and who respond to its withdrawal with litigation. Gareth stared at the table. Nadine sat perfectly still. This court denies the plaintiff's claim in full. Judge Crane said, the plaintiffs are ordered to pay the defendant's legal fees. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to Adult Protective Services for review as a potential case of financial elder abuse. The gavel came down. I sat there for a moment and let it land. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Gloria shook my hand. "You did it, Leonard. We did it," I said. Through the glass doors, I could see Gareth and Nadine standing near the elevator, not talking to each other. Their attorney was packing his briefcase with the tight, efficient movements of someone who wants to be somewhere else as quickly as possible. Nadine said something sharp and quiet. Gareth looked at the floor. I watched them for a moment. Then I walked the other direction, out through the main doors and into the Portland afternoon. The air smelled like rain that had come through earlier and cut grass somewhere nearby. A food cart across from the courthouse was doing steady business. Normal people, normal Thursday, completely unaware that a small and painful war had just ended inside that building. I bought a coffee and sat on a bench in the park across the street. I watched a father push a stroller along the path. Two older men eating sandwiches on the next bench, laughing about something. A woman walking a dog that kept stopping to investigate every crack in the pavement. I did not feel like celebrating, but I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not happiness, exactly. Peace. The kind that comes after you have finally done the thing you should have done a long time ago and were too afraid to do. My phone buzzed. A text from Harriet Odom, my neighbor 3 houses down. A retired nurse who had brought me food every week for the first 2 months after Sylvia passed. "Heard what happened from Stuart. Just want you to know I'm proud of you. Come by for dinner this week." I typed back. I would like that very much. In the months that followed, my life changed in ways that were small and real and mine. I sold the house. It took me a while to decide, but once I did not second guess it. It was a good house and I had been happy in it, but I had been keeping it like a shrine and Sylvia would have had no patience for that. I moved into a smaller condo downtown with a view of the Willamette River, 2 bedrooms, a decent kitchen, a balcony I used every morning. Stuart and I joined a woodworking class at the community center on Wednesday evenings. 2 retired men making furniture nobody asked for, arguing about the right way to join a corner, laughing more than we had in years. I was not especially good at it. Stuart was better and made sure I knew it. I started volunteering at the public library on Tuesday afternoons, reading to kids. Some of them were 5 or 6 years old, sitting in a circle on a rug, completely absorbed in whatever was happening on the page. It turned out to be the best 2 hours of my week. I drove up to Seattle in the fall and ate salmon at Pike Place Market and walked around the waterfront for an afternoon with no agenda at all. I flew to Denver and spent a long weekend with a college roommate I had not seen in 15 years. We drank too much beer and talked about getting old like it was something ridiculous that was happening to someone else. I lived, not for Gareth, not for Nadine, not for anyone's expectations, for myself. It felt unfamiliar at first. Then it felt right. 3 months after the court hearing, my phone rang at 2 in the morning, Gareth's number. I almost let it go, but I answered. He was crying. I had not heard him cry since he was a teenager and had broken his arm falling out of the oak tree in the backyard. "She's gone, Dad." His voice was unsteady. "She left 2 weeks ago, right after the judgment came through. She just packed and left." I sat up in the dark and listened. "I've been trying to figure out how to call you for 2 weeks, he said. "I didn't know how." A long pause. "I didn't know what she was doing. Or maybe I knew and I didn't let myself look at it. I just kept telling myself it was fine, that you had enough, that it wasn't a big deal." I let her convince me of that. His voice dropped. "I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know if that means anything at this point, but I'm sorry." I was quiet for a moment. "It means something," I said. We talked until almost 4 in the morning. About Sylvia, about his childhood, about the oak tree, about what he actually wanted his life to look like now that he had to figure that out for himself. It was the most honest conversation we had shared in years. Before we hung up, I said, "Come by Saturday. Stuart and I are working on a bookshelf. You can help." He came. He was not good at it. We laughed at him and he laughed at himself, and it was fine. That evening, I stood on the condo balcony with a cup of coffee and watched the sun go down over the river. The sky went orange and then pink and then a deep blue that Sylvia would have wanted to paint. My name is Leonard Whitfield. I'm 64 years old. I spent a long time being a safety net for people who had stopped thinking of me as a person. I'm done with that. If any part of this story sounds familiar to you, if you recognize the slow drift of being needed without being valued, then hear this, you are allowed to stop. Setting a limit is not cruelty. It is not bitterness. It is not giving up on the people you love. Sometimes it is the only way to find out who actually loves you back. And sometimes if you're willing to go through the hard part, you come out the other side with your life still intact and finally, genuinely your own.